today is our first episode of Classic Cinema with the Sage Sisters. My name is Lucinda Sage Midgordon, and I'm the oldest sister.
I am Celeste Sage Tate. I'm the youngest.
And we are talking about Love with the Proper Stranger today. This is our first episode. So let me read the description before Celeste and I go off on a tangent and start talking about the movie and you don't know what's going on.
For
Okay,
hours.
here's for hours. So here's the description that I got from Internet Movie Database, which is a really great resource for finding out about movies. Okay. A sales clerk at Macy's department store finds herself pregnant after a one-night stand with a musician who does not even remember her. So you said something about that when I was reading the description a little bit ago. What do you want to say about him not remembering her?
Well, eventually he does. He does begin to remember her.
Pretty
Uh,
quickly, actually. Yeah.
Pretty quickly, yeah. Um, but, as we're going to talk about, he's a musician in a time period where, um, it was hard to be a musician. Most musicians that they portray in this particular film, and in most films in these period dramas, is footloose and fancy free, and they don't really have any responsibilities.
Right.
The only responsibility they have is their music,
Right.
and they live
Which
a
is which
life.
he even says later in the movie, I can get up whenever I want and I don't have any
Right,
he's like this pan he's sort of like a Peter Pan kind of
a Peter
character.
Pan, and I don't want responsibility.
Oh, and we should say that the he we're talking about is Steve McQueen and his character's name is Rocky. And Natalie Wood is the woman who works at Macy's and who's pregnant, and her name is Angie in the movie. And the development of their relationship is very interesting, I think, because at
Well,
first he
let's
doesn't
also say
remember
what
her, and
year.
she's
Yeah, what year this film came.
1963, I think,
1963. Yeah, which, as we
is
know in history, is some really interesting things going on in the 60s.
yes. And this is about 10 years before Roe v. Wade. So
Right, right.
So one of the things they have to decide right away is, are they going to have an abortion? Is she going to have the baby, put it up for adoption? Is she going to have the baby and take care of it herself? Or are
Right.
they going to get married? That's their four options.
Right. The way that they go about having her find him to tell him is really good too.
Yeah. Right. She goes
Uh,
to he belongs to a union, a musicians union, and probably once a week or maybe twice a week they have these meetings where the people who are hiring and the people who are looking for work all get together in this big room and they're milling around and yeah,
and they get called for work,
right. So,
assigned.
and so she gives his name up to the people and they call out his name and then she finds him. That's how she
Yeah,
finds him.
because
Now,
it's a milling mess.
right, it is. And when he doesn't remember her, she gets offended and starts to leave. And he goes, but then he all of a sudden he remembers who she is and he follows her out into the street and he says, how can I find you? And she tells him that she works on the seventh floor at Macy's or something like that.
Yeah,
So I think he knows that she's hoping that he'll help her get an abortion, and that it's
right,
illegal, of course. So it's this. We're going to see the
right,
scene a little bit later. So, but the scenes that we're going to watch are later in the movie. The beginning of the movie, we get to see her with her family, which I don't blame her for wanting to leave. Talk about her brothers and her mom.
well, she her father has passed. Her mom is a very much a mother who expects everyone, her children, to cater to her
Right,
emotionally.
right,
um she only has brothers.
right. Three
um
brothers.
yeah, she only has three brothers. They appear to be an Italian family,
They are. Hmm.
and she has no privacy. The only thing she has to separate her from the rest of the house or the living room, because it's just an apartment, is a
Right.
curtain.
Right.
And they all have to share a bathroom. Yes.
Right.
And so you see right away that really, as a young woman, never had privacy.
Right.
Never.
Right.
And it wasn't even thought of to give her privacy.
Right.
Because I still believe that in that time period, as they show pretty well, that women really weren't thought of as anything other than like a chattel type of situation.
Right.
You're not as important as the men because the men are the breadwinners, even though they show she has a job. And so to see, they do, without really a lot of dialogue, I think they do a very good job of showing her family dynamic.
Yeah, and they do show her brothers. Now, her brothers own this fruit business where they distribute fruit
Yeah,
for the restaurants and
right.
grocery stores and stuff like that in New York. This takes place in New York City, and she works at Macy's. And so they come to pick her up in the fruit truck, and she's like, she doesn't want them to pick her up.
Yeah, she
It's
wants.
like every minute that
Yeah.
she's not at work, they have to control and pay attention to what she's up to, her older brother, I think he is feeling like he has to be the father figure now because their father's dead. And so he takes her out for lunch periodically. He's trying to understand her point of view, but he can't really. And so another thing that they are doing, which is a scene before we're going to see any of the scenes that I've chosen, is they have chosen, this is not probably the first time this has happened, but they've chosen somebody who works at a restaurant where they provide the fruit for it to be, they're setting her up.
Yeah.
And when she finds this out, she goes into the bathroom
Oh yeah.
and she's going to take a bath. And of course, I don't think they have a lock on the door because
No, a lot. Right. Every
everybody comes in the bathroom,
Yeah.
even the guy, and he doesn't want to be there. He's a nice guy, but he's definitely not, he's not Steve
Oh,
McQueen.
I mean, it almost feel like, yeah, he's nerdy and uncomfortable and klutzy. That
Yes,
character is, yeah. And but you get the impression that they feel like she's past her prime
right,
and they need to an arranged marriage for her. They're
right,
doing that. They're going to arrange a marriage because
right.
she's not doing anything about it. And
Yeah.
she's only good for being married.
And I would say she's probably only like 25, 26, 27.
Oh, yeah, I don't think she's very old at all.
No,
Right.
but in the 60s,
Yep.
that's kind of old to be getting married.
Yep.
So, and the guy is really nice.
Oh, he
Um,
is.
and he realizes that I think that they're not a good match.
Right.
And so he leaves early, and then she's so angry that she starts to pack up and leave, but she's afraid. And she doesn't realize that at first, that
Right.
she's afraid to, because, she's never lived on her own. What's it like
No,
to live on her
they've
own?
always had this very close, non-private.
Right.
How at the same time, what that means is you don't get to express yourself.
And
So
she
this
might not even know who she really is without anybody.
and
Yeah.
and she is just trying to break out, but she doesn't know how to break out from it.
Now, the next part of it is when Steve McQueen finds her at Macy's and he has found somebody to do an abortion. And so they're having a little conversation while she's on her break at work. And her brother comes because I think he's going to take her to lunch or something.
Something like that.
And he sees them together. And so he starts putting somebody on to follow them.
Yeah, they go to spy on Steve McQueen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so they're going to meet a few days, it's probably Saturday or Sunday,
yeah, the weekend. Yeah,
um, on the weekend to go have this abortion. And she puts up part of the money, he puts up part of the money. which it's kind of a lot of money for then. It's like $400 or something.
It's a lot of money. It
And
is.
then when the guy and the scene while they're waiting, you really love that scene where they're just standing on this empty
Oh
street
yeah.
down in the
It
marketplace area.
yeah. It's to me, it's because every movie, if you pay attention, has moments of transition.
Right,
And this movie and this moment, there's a pillar that they're standing on either side of it,
right,
back to back. So that is a symbol of they haven't even come together in thought or in any physical way at that moment. They don't even know how to approach each other because they know what could be coming next.
right.
And it's an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a pretty visual without words disaster.
Yeah, and the other thing about that is that they've never really had a real conversation.
No, right,
She's the one who's made the decision that she's going to have the abortion.
right,
He hasn't been part of the decision making at all.
right, right,
And then they when the guy comes, they find out they need another $50 to pay him for making the arrangements.
right.
And so they're kind of stumped, and he says, "Okay, be at this place at this time and bring the $50." And so that now we get to see Rocky's family, and they go to this outdoor park where his dad's playing some sort of game, and his mom has food, and yeah, and there are a whole bunch of people from their
They're,
apartment building or their community there.
yeah,
And he hasn't seen his when they show up, he has Natalie Wood with him, and there it seems like his parents haven't seen him in a while,
a bit, right, right.
but they're
But
really
embrace,
open to her.
yeah, they
What?
embrace both of them. They
Right.
just are so open and so no, you can tell there's no judgment in not seeing him for a while.
And the other thing is that I think his father says something about she's different than the other girls that he brings
Yeah,
around, and
yeah.
and Steve McQueen's like, shh, don't, don't
Not
say
my
anything.
girlfriend.
Yeah, right, right. She's just my friend. She's just my friend. Um, but both parents give him money. Don't tell your father that I've given you
Right,
this money. Don't tell your mother I gave you this money. So they get the money that they need,
right.
but then,
Without even trying.
right,
Yeah,
he doesn't say anything, and they
right.
just give him the money. Right. So then her brothers show up and they have to run.
You have to run.
Yeah, so we're going to see a scene where they finally have their first real conversation, and it's in his father's upholstery shop. They've run and hidden from her brothers. I'm
I'm
going to pause it here, the recording, and then, yeah, we can both watch it.
Take my hand, proper stranger. Don't go through life as a stranger. For I'm a poor, proper stranger too. I could fall in love with the proper stranger if I heard the bells and the banjos ring.
That's what love is. Bells and banjos playing. How they brainwash you. And here I spend my whole life like a nut, waiting for what? A stranger.
Listen, it's possible.
Don't tell me you believe that.
Well, it's a known chemical fact. Some people, you just have to look at them. It's kind of kicky. Other people, chop liver.
Well, that's true, but how come You know, my class in high school, there were half a dozen kids. They couldn't live without each other. They got married. And almost every one of them now, either they're divorced already or they're miserable.
Well, let's face it. You ever take a close look at a married man? Prisoner is Zenda.
Not everybody.
9 times out of 10.
Maybe. I don't know. I used to try to pick out the people who lived alone, you know, in the subway, in the street. And almost every time they had those, I don't know, glassy eyes. Nothing's living in them. Like, I don't know. Dead.
What are you looking at me for? Do I look dead to you?
Couldn't resist it. I don't know.
Hey, you want to see something? Hey, come here. Hi.
What, was that you?
You like that haircut?
I kind of like the haircut, but those knickers.
Hey, I was a very cool cat.
It seems very funny putting you together with a family somehow.
What did you think? I got hatched out of an egg?
And the way they love you.
What are you talking about love? What's love about it? They're glad to see me. They haven't seen me for a long time. Let me hang around here a couple of months. I'll melt right into the wallpaper like everybody else. Phew. Love, huh? Yeah, that's what makes it rough. When they love you.
Okay, so we're still figuring out the technical part of it. Celeste and I had to watch the scenes separately. So now we're going to talk about what we saw. So they had to run away because her brothers found her, and they're in Steve McQueen's Rocky's father's upholstery
yeah.
shop. Yeah, where they do the upholstery. So what was it about the scene that you really liked or noticed?
You know, honestly, the things that I appreciate the most about this scene is the silence.
Yeah, the silences. Yeah.
Their expressions, their silent contemplation, which is not silent.
Right.
You know, you can
About
see
what they're about to do.
you can see that they're thinking about the heaviness of
Right.
what they're approaching,
Yeah.
the heaviness of it's everything all at once, right?
Right.
It's I don't really know you, but yet we're in this situation together.
Right.
And it's uncomfortable, it's painful.
Yeah.
Do I really want to do this?
Right.
How
That's
did
all the subtext.
you know
Yeah.
that's all going on? You can
Right.
feel it because
Right.
we've all been there.
Right.
We
Right.
all know what the silence can mean.
But then there's this other level where it's the first time they've ever had a
Ever.
real conversation.
Right.
And the music, you were mentioning the music.
Yeah. The music, there's the theme for the movie, and it begins to, and in it talks about what love looks like. In the song, it says, love is bells and banjos.
Right.
And Angie turns it off. And that's when the conversation begins, when she says, how ridiculous is that?
Right.
Love being bells and banjos.
Right.
So their conversation begins to be what love looks like to them and what they
Yeah.
think marriage looks like. It's interesting that immediately love and marriage gets brought up.
Yeah.
And to Rocky, his idea of marriage, and he throws out some examples of, it's prison. You're in a
Yeah.
prison.
Yeah.
You have no freedom.
Right.
And then her next example is how she has moved through life seeing people on the bus wondering if they're single or they're married. And in her view, the ones that are probably married are the ones that have an emptiness in their eyes.
Yeah.
And then her
Yeah.
further example is, in high school, she knew friends that just couldn't live without each other. So they
Right.
had to get married right away.
Right.
And now most of them are in the process of getting a divorce
Yeah.
already.
Or they're miserable.
Or they're miserable.
Yeah.
Miserable life.
Now, I thought that when she was talking about the people who had dead eyes, that they were the single people, but maybe I was wrong. I'll have to watch that again and
Well,
see.
maybe, and it could be, because I'm not sure. She herself doesn't seem like she has a very positive outlook on marriage, and maybe possibly because her father may have died when she was pretty young. They don't really make that very clear.
That's right.
Um,
And
and
also
the next, go ahead.
we're not sure she has any single women friends
No,
because
oh, that's a good point. Right. You know, all my friends had to get married.
right,
Everyone who had to get married.
right,
And yet here she is in her 20s and she's not married yet, which is a heaviness on her. And
right.
I'm sure they make that very clear, as we show earlier, them setting her up with someone. And
Right.
they make it obvious too that they have tried to get her together with this particular man before.
And they've
And
tried to get her together with other men, which she
right,
has rejected.
is rejected, and they're angry with her. They think there's
Yeah,
something wrong with her.
right.
It's
But
her fault.
going back to the bells and the banjos, I think that she heard them when she met him, and he
Oh,
says something about, "Oh, wait a minute, we met in the mountains," which
right.
probably means she was on summer vacation up in the Adirondacks, and he had a gig for the summer
Sure.
playing in the band, and yeah, sort of like Dirty Dancing, and she they had a conversation or something, and then
Yeah.
because she would not, I don't think she's the kind of person who just falls into bed with
Oh no,
anybody.
I don't think she is either. And but then what I like is, I feel like in that moment, as they're talking about love and what it looks like to them,
Yeah.
and then they go to, he thinks love keeps you in a prison, and she brings up his meeting his parents,
Oh,
and she says
right.
they love you so much, and he
Yeah.
goes, oh yeah, they love me so much that you hang around after a certain time and you just become a part of the wallpaper. He doesn't think that they really do love him, because he thinks he becomes a part of the scenery. you
Right.
know
Because they hadn't seen him for a while. That's why they
yeah,
act like they love
no,
him. Yeah.
whatever, they haven't seen me in a while, that's what they do.
Right. Yeah. All
But
right.
then, he immediately goes over to this wall that his father has created, and it's a family picture wall, and he shows her a picture of himself when he was a little boy in knickers. And and then, pretty much, I mean, he says to her, well, it's when they love you is when things get hard.
which is a really telling statement, I think.
Oh, yes, it is.
Because later, in a scene that we're not going to see, near the end of the
Right.
movie, when
Right.
she invites him to come to dinners, and she's made this beautiful dinner, and it's a practice because she's decided she's got to get married.
Gotta
She's
get married.
pregnant, so she's going to get married to the guy that the
Yeah.
guys, her brothers, brought around, and she's told him she's pregnant, and we get to see her at his with his family,
His environment.
but
Yeah.
when they're talking, he says something about, well, yeah, I can get up whenever I want. If I don't want to work that day, I don't have to work
Yeah.
that day. And then he says something about, but I have this friend, a musician friend, who's gonna open a car dealership and he wants me to go in with him. And she says, oh, are you going to do that? No, I don't want to do that. It's too much responsibility. But what?
He goes, I got to be tied down.
Yeah, I don't want to be tied down, right? And so, but the thing is that later in that little scene,
Well, we're jumping ahead. We need to go to this scene next.
yeah, so, but that's the thing that he's talking about the whole love thing.
Yes.
Those two things are connected. And
Well,
we're not going to see that scene at the end, but it's a crucial scene, which we will talk about later.
Well, it is, Lucinda, you're making a really good point that, we could show the whole movie because there isn't a wasted scene in this film.
Right.
That's why we want to talk about it first, because no moment is wasted in telling their love story, their story of falling in love.
Yeah, the evolution of their relationship is really cool.
The coming of age, it's figuring out what you really want in life, who you want to be, which really, because they are in this upholstery shop sharing their points of view, you've already seen snippets of their families, you are gathering how they are going to be different than their families.
Yeah, and also we see them being attracted to each other.
Oh, totally attracted to each other. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's just that they don't want to admit it yet.
Well, he doesn't, I don't think he wants to be sexual, not attracted, which is a theme in the 60s.
Right.
We can have lots of sex, but I don't want to have to be committed to anything, and that's the life he thinks he wants.
Yeah. Now there's one thing that we haven't talked about, and we get to see him with this girl who works at night, played by Edie Adams. I think her name is Edie Adams, and she's like a stripper dancer, exotic dancer kind of a person. And we get to see them together, and there's this point where she says, we're so in love with each other, but she's not looking at him, she's looking at herself in the mirror and in this beautiful pose. And he goes, yeah, we're in love with ourselves.
Yep.
I'm in love with myself, you're in love with yourself. It's not,
and it's this mutual relationship they have where they can come together and have a night of fun, but no responsibilities. But yet, as we will not see in the scenes, she does become in part of the story of Rocky and Angie's evolution in their relationship.
Yeah, we're going to see that scene in her apartment. Good. We're going to see that scene.
You get that impression from that scene where she's looking at herself in the mirror and saying, I'm so in love. But really, she is not a superficial person.
No.
You actually see that she's a deeply caring person.
Yeah, right.
And
we just don't see that in the first scene where we see her.
Yeah, well, I like it too because she allows her space, her apartment, to be this boiling point of self-discovery.
Yeah, we're going to see that one third. The next one that we're going to watch is when they go for the abortion. We're going to only see part of it. So I'm going to pause it again, and then we'll watch that, and then we'll comment. We'll come back and comment on it.
Hey, buddy, wait. Where's that here now?
Come on, hurry up. Get undressed. Oh, come on.
Oh! Take it easy.
Are you a doctor? You said a doctor.
Take it or leave it.
Come on, get your clothes on. Get your clothes on. We're gonna get out of here. Come on. Come on, get your clothes. Come on, get your clothes on. Come on. Come on, get your clothes on. Get your clothes on. Come on, I want you to get out of here. Get your clothes on. No. Get your...
Oh, God!
You get your clothes on now.
No! No! No!
I'll kill him before I let you touch him. I'll kill him.
So the abortion scene, oh my gosh. When I
It's
saw this again just recently, before I knew I wanted to start this channel, but I was thinking about what movies could we watch, and it came up. I said, "Oh, I'd like to see that movie again, Love with a Proper Stranger," and it was on Tubi. So I went and watched it again, and I went, "Oh my gosh, this abortion scene! This is where we are again."
Yeah. Well, and the thing that's so interesting about this time period, though, is this is still in a time period where there were no, you know, care for a woman other than when she was getting ready to have a baby. So this whole scene, the abortion scene, you know, when she doesn't even know what to expect.
I know. Yeah.
She has no idea what that's going to entail
Right.
because of the lack of education on what
Right.
anything about women's body parts or how you even probably got pregnant. You know,
Right.
that stuff just hardly got talked about.
Yeah.
So, you know, neither one of them have any concept
Right.
of what this means.
Right.
They just don't know. They're so naive. And
Yeah.
here we are, a man in this time is supposed to know.
Yeah.
He's supposed to know all these things because men can be men and boys can be boys. And if she knows, then she is a slut.
Right.
So, and she obviously does not live that kind of life. So they have no idea what they're getting into. I mean,
Right.
you can even see it as they're heading up into this empty room that's
Empty
not a
building.
hospital.
Yeah, empty building. It's trashy.
It's abandoned. Yes.
Yeah, it's horrible. And before the scene that we're showing, they're hesitating as they're walking up the steps.
Yes.
They're already starting to feel bad about it.
Yeah,
like,
they're just
this is not good. This is not good.
This isn't where we're supposed to be.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and I think what's so important about it is it shows us how in an instant your life can change.
That's right. Yeah. Because
Because
he
he realizes as he's observing the guy that set the thing up, they're standing in the same room.
right.
And how casual he is about the whole thing.
Right.
And
Right.
it's not a big deal. And he's looking at the door, keeps looking at the door. He's standing right at the door jamb.
He's seen the woman that's supposed to be a doctor,
Oh,
but
yeah.
she doesn't look like she's a doctor.
He doesn't look right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, of course, he storms in, and Angie is in there facing the window, looking out to nothingness, undressing
Right.
and frightened, and probably the most alone she has ever felt.
Right. Exactly. I agree. And when he stops, he goes in there and he looks and sees that it's just this blanket rolled on the floor and the instruments and
Yeah.
are they clean and
And he says to
and
the woman, they said you were a doctor.
she
And
says take it or leave it.
whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever.
But one of the most telling parts of that scene, I think, is when he goes over to her and she starts falling apart,
She's
Angie,
frozen. Yeah.
and he slaps her and she starts crying and then he hugs her and says, "I'll die before I let them touch you."
Right.
It's a really important
And he goes,
moment.
I'll kill you. He looks right at him. I'm going to kill
I'll
you. You
kill you.
can't.
Right.
He grows up.
Right. All of a sudden.
He grows up.
Yeah, he goes back and forth a little bit because as the scene later when I was talking, he's still kind of I don't want to have to grow up, but he knows he has to on
He
some
knows
level.
his time has come.
Right. Yeah. Right.
His time is there. It
Yeah.
has presented itself. And I go back to one of my favorite things that I learned many years ago. Everything occurs at the proper time. And this is his and her proper time.
Proper time. Right. Yeah. Now
This
she is so emotionally upset that
well, I think he has a
that they
nervous breakdown.
show the scenes in the taxi where she's sleeping and he takes her to Barbie's house,
Right.
which is the girl that he was in the beginning of the movie. He was waking up at her apartment and oh, we love each other, and she was looking in the mirror at herself. He says to her, I have a friend and she works nights and so it'll be okay. And so he puts her to bed. Now, this is another little interesting tidbit is Barbie has like 4 dogs.
Oh,
And
he has all these small dogs. Yeah.
and all the dogs are sleeping on the bed with Natalie Wood because it's like they know
Yeah.
she needs comfort.
They are comforting Angie
Yeah. And
because
then
animals are healers.
right. And that whole time he's not going to bed. He's sitting in the
No.
chair, he's walking around the apartment, he's thinking. You can see him thinking.
Yeah.
Thinking.
And he looks at her a lot.
And so it's getting on to the beginning of getting light outside, and he puts on his coat and leaves.
Yeah.
And then he comes back with a black eye, which is so funny, and her older brother. And that's the next scene that we're going to watch. And Barbie comes home. We don't get to see this part, but Barbie comes home and Natalie Wood comes out of the bathroom. She's getting ready for work.
Well, and Barbie walks in on her in the bathroom. And
Oh, that's right.
And she looks at her and because she's wrapping up in the towel, and Barbie's like, well, what are you doing here?
Yeah, right. Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, she's like, who are you? And just very casually, Angie wraps up and she turns on and she goes, oh, hi. You know, she just introduces her.
Right.
Like she belongs there, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Kind of like, what has occurred?
Right. What's going on? What's
What the
going
heck
on?
is going on here? And then, of course, they show up.
Right. So
Rocky brother Tony show up.
right. And I love this
Black Eye
scene.
is hysterical.
And this shows he knows that he has to change, but he's not quite ready to change, but he knows he has to change. So this is one of those kind of transition scenes for his character and his thinking
Yeah,
and
the whole thinking, the going and deciding to talk to her brother.
her brother.
Right. But I
Yeah.
think to Tony, it seems like I don't think the mom has any idea what's going on with this.
Oh, no, no, no.
She
Yeah, I think yeah, because later she's just the mother's freaking out.
I think it's parenting and moms in general because, there's a lot of these classic films that the parents truly believe that you owe them something as a child.
Right.
I gave birth to you. I've raised you. You owe me something. Where I think generationally they expect you to do is that exactly as they did.
Right. Or
If they
exactly as they want you to
business, you're
do.
supposed to be a part of the family business.
Yeah, you have to become whatever we want you to
Oh, yeah.
become.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, there are lots of movies, even in the 80s, and beyond, where parents
Yeah,
think that.
they
Yeah,
do think
yeah.
that. Right. I was
And
hoping you'd take over the family business or you
right,
owe me or blah, blah, blah.
right, right.
So let's watch this scene and
Yeah,
then we'll.
yeah. Okay, so I'm going to pause it again.
Honey, would you put some coffee on? Yeah?
Well, it's a lovely day, isn't it?
Angie,
Listen, I
I
want
gotta
to talk.
I have to tell you, Angie, when he told me, my whole stomach turned over on me. I mean it. I'll tell you the truth. I can't believe it. Anyhow, we had a long talk. And the thing is, he came to me like a man, and he's willing to marry.
Why?
I know you're embarrassed the stupid way he put it, but...
I'm not embarrassed. I'd like to know.
What do you mean, stupid?
Stupid, you're stupid.
You calling me stupid?
Why don't you cool it?
Will you stop that? Sit down. The both of you. The both of you. Will you sit down? Do you want to get married?
Well, you said I would, didn't I?
Well, that's not what I asked you.
Well, who wants to get married?
You mean, even though you don't want to marry me, you're willing to do it anyway?
Well, I'm just as much to blame as you are. More. It was my fault, the whole thing, and I'm willing to take my medicine.
That's really wonderful. And I'm the medicine, right? I know this may come as a great big shock to the both of you, but underneath all this hair and skin is a human girl with all the regular things going for me. And believe it or not, I don't want to spend the rest of my life married to a man who's doing me a big favor.
What did I say?
What are you talking about?
All right, I made one mistake, and it was a beaut. But that doesn't mean I have to ruin my whole life and his and the baby's.
The man is willing to marry you. What do you want?
I don't want to be a warden all my life. A prisoner of Zenda? Look, I appreciate what you're willing to do. I mean that. I really mean it. But as long as you feel like being married is being in jail, then you wouldn't be happy, right? So if you're not happy, then you take it out on me. And then I'm not happy. And if you're not happy and I'm not happy, then the baby's not happy. So who needs a whole house full of unhappy people?
Where you going?
I don't know. I've got to get out of here. I'm going to be late for work.
Well, look, you want to hear me say I want to get married? All right. I want to get married. Well, I'm only trying to be honest with you.
Tell the truth. If I said okay, your teeth would fall out. right or wrong. Dominic, I really owe you an apology, you know? I really do. All this time I've been blaming you for everything. You're ruining my life and all that. Well, that's over now. You know why I've never been able to leave home? I just suddenly figured it out. Very complicated. I was scared. And I'm not scared anymore. I'm terrified. Funny? Well, listen. Thank you, Barbie, for the use of the teddy bear.
Okay, so this is very close to the end of the movie.
Yes.
And it's so great because she's declaring her independence in more than one way.
Right.
So, I love what you said. Barbie is come home. She's gone into the bathroom and there's this weird, strange girl that she's never met before.
Right.
And then enter Rocky and Dominic.
Dominic, name right, Dominic.
Yeah, Dominic, her brother.
Her oldest brother.
Angie's brother. And she notices, Barbie notices that Steve McQueen's got a black eye, and she's like, what the heck is going on here? And what does she do? She could throw them all out, but she doesn't do that.
That's right. She does not. She just goes, okay, I'm going to go make some coffee.
Right. And she goes and just sits in the kitchen listening to the whole thing.
And the other thing that's really great about that scene when they flash to Barbie in the kitchen making the coffee, she is attentive. She's very, very attentive on her listening.
Yes.
And I love that they show the dogs. They're kind of listening too.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Get the tension and the importance of that moment.
Right. The dogs do. Right. Yeah.
It's such a great scene. How I believe that it is pivotal for Rocky and Angie.
Yeah.
But in this moment, this is Angie's moment.
Right. It is.
This is Angie's moment of going, you are willing to marry me. You know, and then she sits them down. Okay, she takes control over the whole scene.
Right, right.
Just sit down. We're going to talk about this. You know, and of course, she directs her first thoughts and process to Rocky.
Right.
And she's like, you know, really? This is what you really want?
And I love it when he says, I'm willing to marry you. And she goes, why?
Why?
And they say, well, I'm sorry if you're embarrassed. She goes, no, I'm not embarrassed. I really want to know why you
want this.
Yeah, right.
And
yeah.
Really, it's that question. Not only is it a why, it's a big why.
Right.
Why is, where did you even think this through?
Exactly.
Because I don't think you thought this through. He thought it through in a traditional sense the whole night when she was sleeping. Traditionally, I got to go ask her family for permission.
Right.
And tell the truth. That's how a man mans up. He takes responsibility for what happened. When really, none of them have realized until 30 minutes and almost the movie being over that they both made that choice. They both. And Angie gets it. She's just suddenly like, wait a minute.
I know. I love what she says. Underneath all this hair and skin and stuff is a real person.
I'm a woman that has I'm real.
Right.
Thing.
Yeah. And I love her logic about, I don't want to be the medicine. If you're unhappy, you take it on me. If I'm unhappy, the child's unhappy. And we're all unhappy. Yeah.
Everybody miserable because she in that moment also accepts responsibility for her choice. And she helps them see it's not just the man that has to man up.
Make the choice. Right.
He gets to have choices too. Because as she says, like you said, I'm a human hiding under this?
Yeah.
I have feelings. I have
Now,
wants, needs, and I
yeah.
deserve that. I deserve to have my choice voiced.
I deserve to be happy. That's what
Right.
she's basically what she's saying.
No,
Yeah.
I deserve better. And then, she goes back in the bathroom, gets dressed, and you can see, her brother, and he and Stephen Quinn are kind of like, what's going on here? I don't even understand what's going on here.
It's not going the way I thought it was going to go.
This is what? Wait, she was supposed to say yes.
Right.
How
Yeah.
could she say yes? Because,
Yeah.
they're they have detached themselves from what it means to be involved emotionally.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Now I do love that, she declares her independence and she leaves.
Yeah. And you say
And
you
I
like,
do want to say something about her hair, because this is
yeah,
a costume makeup choice thing that
right.
shows, which we will talk about at some other point. But her hair was always flipped
Her,
under
yep,
on both sides. Now, today, one side is flipped up.
yep,
So it's sort of indicating that, something different is
yes,
happening with her.
yes.
And for most of the movie, that one side is flipped up most of the rest of the
That's
movie.
it is. That's right.
So,
And the other thing that I think is so important to talk about is the exquisite acting in this film, because nothing is wasted, and every breath the acting is amazing. And the two main characters, Steve McQueen and Natalie Wood, Rocky and Angie, they're what beautiful directing
yeah.
to have the scenes, the behind the scenes, each set. To me, it just occurred to me, in that upholstery shop, there's material everywhere, furniture
Right.
being put together, and that
Right.
is symbolic of them starting to put things together.
Right. Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
when they finally make it to going to the abortion, she's got her coat all tightly
Right.
up, and she's got the scarf on, and they're kind of touching each other but not really touching each other, because
Right.
they really don't touch each other a lot. And then when she has her breakdown, and he goes to rescue her at the abortion, then when
Right.
they embrace, that's the first time they embrace, that's the first time they
Right.
touched
Right.
since they got together and she got
Before
pregnant.
the movie started. Right.
Yeah. So when he takes her to Barbie's apartment, I think it's that traditional, and Barbie's place is key too, because that's where he always got to play. He didn't really have to play house. He
Right.
just got to play. And then he
Right.
has these pivotal choices.
Right.
And then the day he brings her brother, pivotal things that happen then, where she suddenly is like, no, this is my choice. I am independent. And one of your favorite things is when she's all dressed, she's getting ready to go, and then she finally addresses her brother, and
Yeah.
you like.
Yeah, I like that she admits to him that she was blaming him for all of her problems, when in fact she was afraid to go out on her own. And we saw that in an earlier scene when she was
Yeah,
with her family. Because she packs up her stuff and she leaves, and then they're all
yeah,
sitting there like, is she really gonna go this time? And then she comes back
right.
and goes into her
And
little alcove. But
the
this time she says, I was afraid.
I was
I
afraid,
was afraid.
right?
And I'm not
Right.
anymore. I'm not anymore.
Yeah, and then the pivotal thing that we're not going to see is, well, we kind of see, is you see that she has decided to move out. I mean, she has a job; she can
Right.
afford.
Yeah, and what has she been doing with that money? She's probably been saving it.
Oh, I'm sure she's been saving it up for sure.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, I love how when she walks out, it leaves Rocky and her brother, they're perplexed.
Yeah, they are. They
They're
don't
like,
get it at all.
I don't, and I'm sure in the traditional sense, well, how in the heck is she going to bring up this baby by herself?
Right.
If
But
she doesn't
she's already made the decision.
right, she's already made her choices. And how all of a sudden her brothers and her family are out of the picture. They're out of the picture all of a sudden. Now it's just her.
Right. And so she decides to go to the guy that they were going to set her up with, and she tells him the whole thing, and he agrees to marry her. Now we get to see that scene with her at meeting his family.
Yeah.
And his mother is quite interesting, and his sisters are very interesting. They're not welcoming. They're not, at all. And
Right.
so, but then Steve McQueen ends up going to see her at the store again and asks her out. So it's like, okay, maybe what I need to do is we need to date for a little while and see if we're really in love.
Right.
That's what I think he's thinking. But she says, "Oh, I can't. I have a date." And he's like, "You
He's
have
like,
a
what?
date?"
He's like, with who?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
who would you want to be with besides me?
right. Well, and also in your condition, sort
Yeah,
of.
exactly. Who I don't understand. And I love how she creates this environment of having for everyone to grow up. Because once she does her growing,
Right.
it creates that environment of further growth.
Exactly.
And let's just say, I haven't said this word, perspectives, new perspectives on what love can look like. What
So
love can look like.
So then I love that she invites him over because she's gonna test out her cooking to see
Yes.
if the guy who owns the restaurant that she's gonna marry, she's decided she's gonna marry even though she doesn't love him, if he's gonna like it. So Steve McQueen shows up at her little apartment and it's just so cute. She's decorated it up. It's only like a couple, 3 rooms.
Yeah, I think it's really like a studio,
Yeah, it is sort of. I mean, she does have a separate bedroom from the living room and
Yeah, it's
kitchen
a
area,
cute little apartment.
but but he already starts putting the moves on her, and she's like, "No, no, 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 we're not doing that." And so she offers him a drink, and she doesn't know how to mix drinks or anything, which is so funny. That's a funny little thing. And then he says, this is when he says, I like my life. I can get up at when I want to. If I don't want to work that day, I don't have to work that day."
Yep.
And he talks about his friend who has invited him to go with him
The car
into
dealership.
the car dealership. And then when she says, "Now you're kind of a test for me," because he's sitting down and she's giving him some food and he goes, "Wow, he's tasted it. Wow, this is really good." "Really? Oh, good. You're kind of a test for me because the guy that I am engaged to owns a restaurant." And then they have this little fracas. And she pushes him out the door and says, if I don't hear the bells and whistles, then it's okay." And she pushes
The
him out the
bells
door.
and banjos. The bells and
Bells and banjos, and
Yeah.
And he can hear her crying on the other side of the door.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the final straw for him.
I think so too.
He realizes they do have something.
Yeah.
The bells and the
Well,
banjos.
and it makes him see that love doesn't look like what
He thought.
Yeah, it's not a prison. It's actually a freedom.
Right.
I think this part of his story is, I don't have to wait a minute, because she's not even asking him in that scene in Barbie's apartment. She's like, "I don't want to be your warden."
Right.
And I think he finally gets it. Wait a minute, love isn't prison.
Right.
The wife isn't the warden. The children aren't,
right,
a mess.
Right.
We're not part of this big, it's love. Love is freedom.
Right. Yeah.
When
right.
you do it in a way that is genuine and authentic.
It took him a long time to get there, but then the very last scene is she's coming out of Macy's and she hears this banjo and
Right.
and
And the
bells,
bells.
And she's like, what the heck? And he's got the sign, better wed than dead. And
Yeah.
all these people are standing around him going, what the heck are you doing, guy? And of course he drops everything and follows her. And then we see this long shot of them kissing. So we know they're going to be together, but it's so rewarding
It
because
is rewarding. It
they
really
both
is, because that long shot also says to me that their world is going to be bigger.
right. Yeah. And there are all kinds of people in it.
Yeah, right. It is
Yeah.
a mosaic.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, this movie also shows that just because she became pregnant doesn't mean you have to feel like you have an obligation.
Exactly.
And she realizes she doesn't want anyone to feel obliged to her. She
Right.
wants you to feel free with her.
Right.
That is her desire, is to have love be free.
And in fact, I think uh he when he's there at dinner before she gets all they have an argument and she pushes him out the door, he says something about, you you're in this situation and
Oh yeah,
you're not asking anybody for anything. You're just making
you're doing,
decisions for yourself.
you're
And
taking care of yourself. And
yeah,
he's
and I
amazed at
admire
that.
that.
Yeah, he totally is amazed. And
Yeah.
I think that's when he starts to realize love for her too.
Because
Because he's
she's
like,
not asking him
she's
to
not like what I thought women were like,
right.
wanting to
Yeah.
latch onto you and you
Right.
to be the
Exactly.
hero.
Exactly.
Because he doesn't want to be a hero.
And she doesn't need him to be a hero, and
He doesn't need him to be.
that's another little step in his evolution.
Right.
Yeah.
The whole knight in shining armor thing is, that's an illusion. And they help break that for each other.
So
And I just think it's, better wed than dead is actually, some people would see it as, oh my God, that's so horrible. But I like how it shows that it doesn't have to be heavy to make that choice to love.
right. So any last thoughts about this movie?
Well, I mean, the reason why we talk about these films is because these are films I highly recommend. I mean, my daughter and I, Ariel, I have, because I'm such a deep love of classic films, have introduced classic films, and we had to buy this film after I showed it to Ariel because she loves it so much.
Yes.
And so it doesn't matter. She is 22. It doesn't matter what age you are. These classic films are profound.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're still studying the Iliad and the
Oh
Odyssey and all the Greek
yeah, yeah.
myths, all the
And
myths.
and if you really want to go to film school and learn about classic films, watch Turner Classic Movies.
Right.
Subscribe to it. Find a way to be a part of the community, because they their excitement, their love for classic films is so amazing. And you get caught up in it.
And all the programming that they have about the
Oh
films,
yeah. I mean, and the
about the
stuff they have,
eras.
it's on YouTube, and
Yeah.
they've created a very expansive community. You
Yeah.
can see films on Max, and
Yeah.
they're very, it's an excitement that you catch on to, and you can't
Right.
get away from it, because once you
Yeah.
start getting hooked, I mean, my 17-year-old son, he absolutely loves classic films, and he wants to be a filmmaker, and he loves watching these, going, oh my God, look at that fabulous camera shot. Oh, look at the perspective they're giving you on, how the relationships are developing. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
so
Right.
everybody can get it.
Right.
Everybody can be a fan.
Right. And
And
this
this
one,
movie is a fabulous introduction into, because it doesn't have a lot, special effects.
no, right. Yeah.
It's beautiful,
It's
and it's black
relationship
and white.
based. It's the
And it's
relationship
just human nature
right.
based. It's
Right.
about relationships,
Right. And
which
the
is
other
what you
thing, right, that's what we love, right. And the other thing about it is that it's also social, shows a
oh,
little snapshot
yeah,
of the social mores and the social times
right,
and what people have to deal with in terms
right.
of what happens if you have this accidental pregnancy and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. And um I really think so. I think it puts into question uh what is morality. I don't think it is black or white.
I know,
I
right.
do think, and considering the times that we're in right now, I mean, I don't think we're ever supposed to stop. We're not supposed to stop questioning
Right.
where our compass is,
Right. Exactly. Right.
because life is supposed to challenge us.
Right. Really. Yeah.
And this movie puts you smack dab in the middle of it. And you and I, and we were raised to take every experience, classic films included, as an opportunity for expansion.
Right.
And that's
Right.
why we're doing this, because
Well,
we want to put this out there on how exciting it can be.
yeah. And I used to think that movies and being in love with stories was a little bit, trivial. And then when I found when I was starting Story Power and I found the quote by Roger C. Schenck, who's a cognitive scientist, that said, humans are not ideally set up to understand logic. They are ideally set up to understand stories. I went, oh, well, okay.
Right,
I don't have to
right.
feel upset about,
Well, I
or
mean,
less than.
yeah, I mean, because comparison puts you in prison,
Right,
you know?
right. Yeah,
And but also, as we mentioned the other day at our book club, but comparison in a certain sense can also expand you,
right. Yes,
and it's by
right.
example.
Okay, so the next movie that we're going to talk about is one that we also both love. It's a comedy and it's called Born Yesterday, and it's kind of got a little bit of a political twist to it, but
Things are still going on now.
yeah, but also it's about this woman who is pretty ignorant and it's her awakening. So it's a really great movie, and that's the next one we're going to talk about. And thanks so much for listening. Do you have anything last word? One last word.
No, I'm just I hope everyone listens, because we have a deep passion for this.
Yes, we do. We do. So until next time, this is
Have a
Lucinda
joyful
Sage.
life, everybody.
That's right. And my name's Lucinda Sage Midgordon. And bye until next time.
Bye.